We believe that videos, images, words, and sounds have the absolute power to inform, inspire, and entertain. We are united under the virtues of safety and knowledge. We are a training community of learners and teachers who encourage and energize each other to achieve greatness. We are pilots, videographers, photographers, freelancers, business owners, enthusiasts, experts, and apprentices. We are creators. We are the Drone U.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another laughter-filled episode of Ask a Drone U. My name is Paul.
And I'm Rob, and you're listening to episode number 308. Thank you very much for being with us again. We thank you.
Starting on a high note today, Rob.
We thank you, yes.
Yeah,
a lot of thank yous.
I like when you said thank you, you looked up.
Cool. I don't know why. I was looking at the camera. I'm thanking the people.
I'm sure you were. It has been a busy weekend, Rob.
Yeah, it has been a lot going on.
There has been a lot
Thank you.
going on.
Thank you.
Rob
yes.
is in a great mood today. This is something we normally don't see, so I love this.
Wait a minute.
I like how he hid behind the computer so he can't see.
So he can't agree? Barely. He had an agreement face.
We're just
Son
getting
of
down.
a...
We're just getting down to real truths here.
This sucks.
All right.
Anyways.
All right, we're going to edit that little gap out.
No, we're not. That's good stuff. That's
John's
good
like,
stuff.
no, we're not.
We're leaving that in. I'm always in a good mood.
All right, so... April Fools, everyone. I love my job, if you didn't notice.
All right, anyways.
All right, anyway.
A lot going on.
A lot going on. Here to break it down so everyone can actually understand what the hell he's saying is John Rupert. So let's leave it to John to give everyone the news of all the fights that are going on this weekend in the drone world. There's been a huge shift in strategy in the small UAV coalition, which I think is a very, very big deal, more so than the DJI lawsuit. But you know what? Let's leave it to John to tell everyone.
Here's John.
DJI sues Yuneec, Clash of the Titans. And what some might think is an April Fool's joke from DJI, it is not. DJI filed suit in the federal district court against Yuneec. This is interesting because just on Thursday, USA Today announced that DJI, Parrot, GoPro, and 3DR all have left the small UAV coalition. Intel, who invested $60 million in Yuneec, is still listed as a member of the small UAV coalition on the website. The release from DJI said, the complaint asserts that Yuneec's products and technology infringe 2 DJI patents and seeks injunctive relief to halt the further sale of the infringing Yuneec products and systems. DJI is suing for an injunction, damages, and attorney fees. DJI is not being represented by Brendan Schulman in this lawsuit, but instead by a private law firm. It's also interesting to note that in one of the statements of the complaint, it says that when Yuneec demonstrated its Typhoon H product at CES in Las Vegas in January 2016, a writer for The Verge called the Typhoon H the biggest challenge yet to DJI's supremacy. An article from Cinema 5D labeled the Typhoon H a serious contender to DJI's prosumer lineup. One photography-focused website went so far as to call Yuneec's Typhoon H a DJI killer. So, what is DJI trying to do? Looks like they're trying to hold on to some of their turf and keep Yuneec at bay. It's going to be interesting how this all plays out, and we're going to keep you up to date.
But what do you think of this? Let's get into the dirty business of drones here, because it is a dirty business. It is the gold rush.
So let me ask you, the coalition, why was that important to the drone industry? or was it? Or
well, I feel that in 2014, 2013, the FAA was really trying to divide hobbyist users versus commercial users. Okay,
so you're giving them a lot of credit to be thinking in terms of doing that, but you might be right.
All right, well, thank you. Sorry to the FAA. Anyway, no, I really do think because, and this has been really the arguments of drones forever, right? You've got guys who have 333 exemptions who can't fly within 500 feet of anyone, yet a hobbyist can fly 10 feet from someone.
Sure.
And it's okay. You know, so people have really been like, oh, they always play the, you're not paying me for drones, you're paying me for editing, or I'm taking ground video and the drone's extra, you know, stuff like that. The thing is here is that when the FAA said, okay, there's hobbyists and there's commercial guys, I think there was a very clear line, right? They can handle commercials as one category, commercialization as one category,
Yep.
and they can handle hobbyists in another category. Even though they thought people would be more apt to take risks because they're being paid to use their drone versus hobbyists who they believe would not take as many risks.
Interesting philosophy.
I think it's completely backwards. I literally think it's actually backwards.
Well,
That's
I'm just
given-
going to say I've heard stories that would frankly prove that it's backwards.
Yes.
Of people that just go buy drones and what they do with them as hobbyists. Not
But
good.
the reason that I think that there was this strategy is that the FAA could focus purely on the commercial aspect of it, and they could rein in everyone who is commercial because that's a much smaller group of people that's actually using their drones to make money.
Smaller group, and frankly, I think it's people that are more likely to do what the FAA asks them to do.
I mean, the demographic is more adept to actually listening to authority figures.
Listening to authority figures and following the rules that allow them to do business in the first place, right?
Yeah, totally. So, and then in 2014, we saw that the interpretive ruling on 2012, even though 2012 had really given people the basis of, I'm going to go fly my drone commercially, and you can't say anything about it because there's nothing that says anything about it.
Right.
Which people still argue to this day, but anyway, I'm not saying that's a right argument or a wrong argument. I'm just saying people say that.
Sure.
I think this whole shift actually showcases the digression of the industry over the last 2 years because the consumerists are now trying to protect the right to fly more so than the commercial people, because the commercial people have now said, okay, we're going to fly and we don't really care what's going on with the hobbyists. Why is
Right.
that a big deal? The loudest mouths are the people who are making money with drones. So if they can silence those people, it's like, all right, well then, we can do our thing here. So I think it was a strategy by the FAA to divide and conquer.
Okay.
Is in summary. But I also think this is phenomenally good news for us
Why is that?
because now you're going to have Wall Street fighting for the sake of consumer drones, which in my eyes is the freedom to fly.
Okay, so tell us why you think Wall Street will now be fighting on behalf of consumer drones.
Well, if there's a lot of regulations against drones, are people going to be buying drones?
Okay.
Now, if Wall Street has a say in how much money or how many people are buying drones, do you think we're really going to have all these antics going on in Congress between the FAA and Congress?
Yeah.
I think money is the driver of all things here. That's why you're seeing more talked about with Amazon taking over the 200 to 400 foot area of airspace than really anything else right now, and that's because they have the money to lobby.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, how many people can you pay
follow
off?
the dollar
Seriously.
is really what generally leads us where we're going.
But also, I
Anyways.
think it's also saying something that's greater. All of those other groups that are in the small UAV coalition, they either won't fight the FAA or they're not willing to fight the FAA. Because remember,
Right.
we know for a fact that dissenting opinions were not even allowed in these task force. So these task force are an illustration or a picture of, hey, the people really do have something to say here, but they don't. And I
So-
think that's a very clear message that's being sent by those people leaving the small UAV coalition. Now, these are just my thoughts. This is what I'm thinking. This
So
is theory.
speculation is that one of the reasons they're leaving is because they're not being heard, and sort of what's the point?
Or that their objectives are different from everyone else's.
Right. But I would think if their objectives are different, I mean, they could still make a difference by being a part of that sort of inside conversation.
Well, and then you ask yourself the question if DJI, Yuneec, GoPro, and all these people are really affiliated with the small UAV coalition, how would they ever have allowed registration to happen when they know registration was completely illegal? Completely illegal. I mean, even the way that they did it was illegal.
Right.
So maybe it's a shift from that away too. Like, okay, we realize we made a mistake by joining your group because we were essentially lobbying for the thing that hurts us.
Yeah. And oof. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but we'll learn more in the coming days and weeks and months, obviously, and so we'll see what happens with that.
Totally.
Lawsuits. Not that big a deal. Not even really much of a surprise.
Well, I talked to John Rupert over the weekend, which thank you, John. And it's funny, like our text messages always, in Saturday mornings, I'll send him something and he doesn't respond. And Sunday afternoons when I'm with my family, he sends me something and I can't respond. So it's like this back and forth. But when we did have the opportunity to finally talk, he was like, well, I think this is actually a fairly big deal because now you're having patent lawsuits. This is DJI really becoming Apple. This is the Apple fighting Samsung in the drone community.
Exactly. One thing that I'm curious about, and I think you mentioned it as well, Paul, is what products are they even talking about having an injunction against selling anymore?
So as John Rupert said, they're trying to stop the sale of the Yuneec Typhoon H.
Well, did he say the Typhoon H, or did he just say Typhoon products?
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it's a Typhoon H because it has to do with obstacle avoidance.
Okay.
And DJI did have that before Yuneec. Guys, remember the Matrice 100 had obstacle avoidance on 3 sides, not just one, as Yuneec is being purported to.
That's a really interesting case because Typhoon's version comes from Intel. Mm-hmm. So does Intel get drawn into that somehow?
That's actually a very good question. That's a very, very good question.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see what happens with all of that. But
well, then you ask the question of who's in charge of Intel's investments, because they invested $40 million in 3DR and then they invested $60 million in Yuneec, and now look where both of those companies are headed.
Yeah.
So, and I hate to say that because people are like, well, how could you say that? Well, in my opinion, the Solo is a flop. Absolutely a flop. I think that's evident in the fact that Chris Anderson laid off a bunch of people. They closed the Austin store. They're moving to California. And they're focusing on enterprise-grade solutions. They're not focusing on consumer-grade solutions.
So they've kind of come full circle in that sense.
Yeah, which is very interesting, actually.
They were really, really good at that.
They were very, very good at the whole DIY, Pixhawk, being able to program anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is their bread and butter, and they should be focusing on their bread and butter because they do have, every industrial inspector I've ever met is using 3D robotics stuff to do the heavy inspections, like the power line inspection,
Right.
The big ag is done with Pixhawks and planes. So,
yeah. By the way, both DJI and Typhoon, they're Chinese companies. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Which is another
very interesting
side
again,
note.
the fact that it's here in the United States DC Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that is interesting.
But I also think it's interesting because as today's question focuses on the Phantom 4 versus the Yuneec Typhoon, that is that comparison actually, which is very funny that we got this question in at this time.
Great timing.
Yeah, seriously. Mark in Colorado, really good timing. It brings up the question of how these two things are being marketed, because the Typhoon H is trying to say that it's cheaper than the Phantom 4, but it doesn't come with the obstacle avoidance at that price point.
Right.
Another thing that's really interesting to me, DJI is trying to get an injunction against Yuneec to not sell the Yuneec Typhoon H. Yuneec Typhoon H isn't even for sale yet. It's still on pre-order.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering. I think he might have said... Anyways, we'll clarify that, but whether he said products or Typhoon H, because if it's Typhoon H, that's interesting. They're not even selling it yet, but if it's other products, well, then which ones...
Pretty sure it's a Typhoon H. I mean,
that makes sense,
yeah.
I guess. I don't know enough about the other Typhoon
But are you
products.
saying, would it extend to the other Typhoons? Because there are 3 Typhoons,
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. And are they asking them to have to stop selling those? Anyways, I don't know. Interesting developments. We'll see how they play out over the next few, like we said, days, weeks, months.
Yeah, I'm
maybe years.
Interested to see if Trent Sigurd is going to say anything about this, because he's normally very vocal about issues in the.
Because he's a Typhoon guy, right?
He works for Yuneec now.
Yeah. Oh, he does.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
That's why I'm really interested to hear what he's
get him on the horn.
I don't know if
Mr.
he'll even
Aiken.
respond. I have the interview with him at CES about the Typhoon H and all of the really cool features that it had over the Solo, that it had over the Phantom 4, and it still has those features over the Phantom 4 and Solo. And we never put the video out just because we were in between editors, we were in between producers.
Well, maybe this is a good time to put that video out.
Maybe it is.
We'll have to do that because... there's just not a lot of new information about the H because it hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
So that happened at CES, and then there's just been a lot of kind of blank space.
That's true.
As we wait on it.
Very true.
Anyways.
We should probably get to today's question, which focuses on the Phantom 4 and the Yuneec Typhoon H, and that question is presented to you by...
Are you a drone pilot? Are you operating under a Section 333 exemption? Then you may be familiar with Item 27 which requires you to get a property release for every flight over property.
Legal Flyer is an app for iPhone and iPad that helps you create professional property releases in less time than it takes to do a pre-flight check.
You can add your pilot info, you can sign in, hand it to the property owner for their signature. But wait a second. Legal Flyer's advanced integration automatically adds latitude, longitude, and even altitude.
Then add a panorama straight from the app. Everything drops into a single-page PDF you can share with a single tap. It's compliance at light speed. Visit LegalFlyer.com for more information or get it straight from the App Store. Legal Flyer. Property releases for professional drone pilots.
Hello, Paul and Rob. Mark in Grand Junction, Colorado. Had a question regarding the Phantom 4 as well as the Yuneec Typhoon H that will be coming soon, and wanted to see what your thoughts are on the comparison of the two. I know with the Yuneec, at least with the current version of the Yuneec that's out, you've had comments on motor power, battery capacities, GPS satellites not quite being up to the same level as the Phantom. Wanted to see if there's enough information out there yet on the Typhoon H to give us some feedback on what your thoughts are there. I like the idea of the redundancy of having the 6 rotors on the Typhoon, the portability of it, but wanted to see feature-wise and support-wise going forward what you think. Also, just realizing with the price being advertised at $12.99 on that Typhoon H, it appears that the RealSense version of it is something separate, which was a surprise to me. So I wasn't sure if you had any more information on what the difference will be with the RealSense technology, as the lower priced version does have some type of obstacle avoidance as well. So anyway, sorry for the long message. I appreciate the show and look forward to hearing.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark, for that question. We really appreciate it. Appreciate all the questions Mark sent in.
Mark has been
a few.
sending, a lot of questions. Sorry to interrupt you, but yes, lots of questions.
That's cool. Yeah, from pretty early in the podcast life cycle, he's been doing that. And guys, if you have a question, as Mark did, go to askdroneu.com. We love getting them. In fact, we need them, right, for the show to work.
Well, that is true.
So help us out with that.
Definitely. Definitely. So Typhoon H, Phantom 4, we've already been talking about it. We had to get that question in there. One of the things that he talks about, he says, I noticed the Yuneec Typhoon H says that it's $12.99 without the RealSense. Does it come with obstacle avoidance with the lowest price point? The way that I understand it from the website is that it comes with, VPS, like on the Phantom 3, Phantom 4. It has VPS, but on the front of the drone. So you have obstacle avoidance through a forward-facing
Which means
VPS.
forward, right?
Yeah.
Which I read someone that made a good point of, I generally am fine when I'm going forward. It's when I'm trying to do backwards, side to side. That's usually when I run into trouble. So makes sense.
The Phantom 4 is more expensive, but the Typhoon H at that price point doesn't really have the obstacle avoidance.
So that's probably going to be, another $200 or $300, I think, is what we're reading, speculating.
So I know you've seen that, but I've seen $17.99. With
that would include it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that'd be another $400.
500. Well, or
8.
400. Yeah. Sorry. That's why he's the bean counter.
Anyway.
So the Phantom 4 does come more complete, ready to fly out of the box. And people have been saying you have a pros and cons list here, that the Yuneec Typhoon H, it has that remote with a built-in tablet, so you don't have to spend the extra money for a tablet.
Right.
The thing is, though, is that remote is so big. It is like you are holding an Xbox One. I mean, literally, it is massive.
I didn't know that. So you saw that at CES, obviously.
I got to hold it and play with it and the whole nine.
Really?
So
I didn't realize. Okay, I've not heard you say that.
I mean, it's like this big. You're holding it, and it's like, and I'm like, how?
It's like holding a keyboard.
Oh, yeah. That's a great example. It is like holding a keyboard. It is like the size of a keyboard. Yeah.
Huh.
So I don't like that. That's just me.
Well, and because that's a good point to say it's just me, because it's getting into personal preference, frankly.
Totally. And I'm not a fan of the DJI remotes either. Like, I actually prefer my Futaba setup.
Right.
I love that setup. So, but what I also like about the DJI remote is that even though my hands are here, remember, I'm never looking at my hands. I'm always looking at the screen, which is here. So holding it here, I can still look forward and not look at my hands. With the Yuneec, I'm looking down at my hands, when I'm flying, because the screen is where my hands are.
That's an interesting difference because really you're kind of thinking about, it's going to sound so ridiculous, but looking down, that's how lazy we are as a society maybe, I don't know, having to move your head versus just literally your eyes.
See, the thing is I remember like back in the day when we first had Phantom 1s without FPV, we're always looking up, which would always hurt my neck.
Right.
But looking down, I feel like would hurt my neck even more.
Yeah, so as I'm saying, with the DJI and with the tablet, you're already here, basically.
Looking forward. So
looking forward, and so you're really, it's more of an eye movement than a neck. Your neck's in more of a natural position.
Yes.
I didn't
yes.
think we'd break it down that way.
Which may sound for some people like, oh, I can't even believe that they're factoring that in on a drone comparison. But there are people out there who have limitations in physical capability, and there's a lot of people who fly drones that have those limitations. So it's important to factor those in.
Yeah.
Call us lazy. I'm lazy. Call me lazy. I'm
Or,
lazy.
yeah, just ignore that information, whatever you want to do.
Yes. So another thing that was said was that you guys never really talk about the cameras. I thought Mark said that, or maybe that's just in my head. Probably just in my head. One thing I will say about the Phantom 4's camera is that it has not changed, but the glass has changed, which makes for a little bit crisper photos, and you're also getting more detail in the corners, so you're getting a better overall photo.
But as far as specs between the two cameras, they're relatively similar, right?
They're relatively identical.
That's a new phrase. Relatively identical. Cool. All right.
So that means they're like 95% identical with a few changes.
Let me just start asking you. Let me just start asking you a couple questions. So, how important to you would be the difference, which is a redundancy issue, between the 4 motors versus the 6 motors?
Okay, so this is a great point because in the survey that you have here on whether people prefer the Yuneec Typhoon H to the Phantom 4, the guy says, I don't care about redundancy, but I like the 6 motors on the Yuneec. That doesn't make sense. Redundancy is the foundation of aviation. If you've ever gotten a pilot's license or flown in a plane, there's redundancy for everything. It's only recently that DJI has given us redundancy in our aircraft. So what am I talking about redundancy? If one thing fails, got to have a backup, right?
Yep.
That's why you got
It's like having multiple hard drives in your server.
Exactly. Yep. So in the very beginning, we've never had multiple IMUs. We've never had multiple compasses. We've never had multiple compass systems. But you go on a Cessna, you go on a plane, and it's got 5 or 6 IMUs, not 1 or 2. So we've only moved up to the level of 2. When it comes to redundancy with the Yuneec Typhoon H, the guy in your survey said, well, you know, realistically, you could lose 2 motors and still be flying. To 99% of the people who have never had a motor loss and actually like had to land an aircraft with a motor loss, I would really like to see an average Joe try to land a hexacopter that's had a motor loss.
But it could be the difference between just a hard landing versus falling out of the sky, right?
A very hard landing. Well, a lot of people don't know how to control the yaw. That's what happens when you lose a motor is that your yaw goes out of control. You start constantly turning. People are like, I can't move forward. I can't do this. You have to engage all 4 control surfaces of the drone at one time to be able to land it.
Okay.
If it loses a motor. If you lose 2 motors on a Yuneec, you're probably going to drop out of the sky because
So theoretically it sounds good, and on some level it has to be good, but you've got to
it is very good, actually. I think having that extra motor is really good, but what doesn't make sense is the fact that this guy was like, I don't care about redundancy, but we're talking about motors. That is redundancy.
Okay.
But also, my point is, too, is that the Phantom 4 has multiple points of redundancy that the Yuneec does not have, which is the multiple IMUs and the multiple compass pucks. So not only are we pulling information from 2 separate sources on GPS, but we also have 2 separate compass pucks.
Sure.
And frankly, I would rather have that than the motor redundancy.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. That makes a lot of sense. What about, let's see, and again, we don't have the Typhoon. In fact, we haven't even flown the P4 yet. But from a flight time perspective, do you know if one is supposedly better than the other?
Honestly, no. My question would be, and I believe that Yuneec is now using smart batteries, but my question would be, is the Yuneec, does it have a smart battery? Because in the regular Typhoons, they don't have smart batteries, and you burn through them very quickly. So, you know, it's funny, as I was sitting here talking about this kind of reminds me of the early days of aviation, right? Redundancy. Right? If we have redundancy, we have good things. Remember all the old planes with 4, 6, sometimes 8 motors, you know, and now all of our jets only have 2 motors, but they have multiple points of redundancy in the parts. That's kind of what I feel like I'm seeing here with Yuneec. Yuneec saying, oh, we need redundancy, more motors. DJI saying, no, we don't need more motors. We need more points of redundancy in the things that we're using the most.
Just really good motors, then the electronics and the redundancy behind that to make sure they keep going.
Yeah, because your chances of losing a motor are very low. Your chances of losing an ESC are very high.
Okay.
So the chances of your motor failing, I feel like that's very low on the priority list. Your prop and an ESC, if it's too hot outside or you're pulling too much energy out of the battery, that's going to fry the ESC. Then you'll lose the motor because of the ESC. Got
it. So, and maybe because of the extra power that's needed in bigger batteries, I don't know, this doesn't help Typhoon, but does the 6 motors, the 6 props give that drone more payload capacity and maybe you can do more with it than the P4?
It does have more payload capacity as far as what you can do with it. I don't know, because one thing about the Phantom 4 is, you can hang another gimbal off the back of it. Same thing with the Phantom 3.
Right.
Can you do that with the Typhoon H? I just honestly
and just in
don't
terms
know.
of the infrastructure, you mean, and whether it's set up to do that?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. My complaint about the Yuneecs before was that they suck at high elevation. They're super slow. You blow through batteries. It just sucks. I think that problem may have been solved with this unit because they're using smaller props, more aggressive pitch, more motors.
Yeah, because you've mentioned that point in the past, so that's not changed apparently in terms of your understanding.
Well, I mean, I look at that because you can kind of tell the way that a drone manufacturer makes their products off of their their flagship product.
Right.
So, and that's not always true, but I feel like in this case it is. And in their other cases, I've noticed that they're slow. So, and I love what Yuneec is trying to do. I think competition is great. A lot of people are saying, well, do you just hate competition? Are you a DJI fanboy? No, I'm not. I actually love competition because it's pushing DJI to do more quickly.
Yeah, and vice versa. I mean, Yuneec has come a long way relatively quickly, I think, in catching up. And, it's debatable, I suppose, whether they've actually caught up or not. A lot of people would say they have. So, yeah, it works both ways. And even with 3DR in there, throw them all in there.
And I would say that they haven't because this product is not on the market yet.
Well, that's true.
And remember the Solo.
Right.
What happened last year?
Yeah, and I'm certainly not wanting to compare them, but talking about this off the air, that is an observation that we made, and that is there's some similarities to the rollout here of how the Solo rolled out, and that's disconcerting a little bit.
No, totally, and even DJI has had issues with the Phantom 4 manufacturing. So the manufacturing is a very big issue for technology.
Well, and that's an interesting side note, and maybe a negative about the competition, which I'm not negative about competition, but maybe they push things out before they should.
That's true.
Without really flushing it out and testing them in a way that they normally would. I don't know. That could be a side effect that we'll probably never know.
That's a very good question. But just so everyone knows, we don't have a Typhoon H. They're not out yet. And we haven't flown the Phantom 4. So we can't really give, a unique comparison, as they would say.
Pun intended?
So, oh, no. If you ever meet the Yuneec sales guys, and in fact, I have one in particular, Mike. He's always like, even no matter who it is, this could be a 65-year-old woman. He's just walking by, because I've been there when this has happened. And he's like, "Oh, ma'am, you have a unique day." And I literally looked. I looked at him and I was like, "Well played, dude." When in all actuality, I'm like, "Where's my camera so I can make a viral video?"
All right. So question then becomes. And I think this is what folks like Mark are looking at, and maybe not specifically or exactly, but kind of comes to mind. Let's say you got $2,000 and you're going to buy a drone.
Yep.
Do you go ahead and buy the P4, or do you wait for the Typhoon to learn a little bit more about it when it actually comes out? And I guess part of that depends on your existing variables of, do you need a drone, obviously, but let's say you've got a little time.
It's funny that when you said that, the first thing that came to mind for me was how much are the accessories and how much is the case? Because a drone is never, I'm going to buy a drone. It's going to be $1,500.
True.
No, you're going to buy a drone and then you're going to buy $2,000 worth of batteries. So, and
of course, that's the other thing. Typhoon comes with a case, right? The H comes with a case. I don't know.
Well,
how good
the
it
Phantom
is.
4 comes with a case too, but it's made out of like your beer foam.
Right.
Like, I'm going out on the lake,
Yeah.
redneck yacht club. Woo! So, I think that's not really a case.
Okay, so let's say the accessories are similar.
In cost?
Yeah. Cost, quality, you're comfortable with the accessories.
If we're also talking about a fundamental precedent of quality and reliability, in that, meaning like how has the company put out accessories before? How reliable were they? How expensive were they? I'm going DJI.
Yeah, it's just a proven commodity.
It's
for all intents and purposes.
It's reliable in the aspect of it's predictable.
Right.
So,
but that could change again once the Typhoon comes out.
See, and that's the other caveat. That's the other caveat, right? Is like if you're making this decision right now, there is no decision because there's only one of these two available.
Well, but the decision is, do I wait? Because the Typhoon H seems like it's worth it to wait.
Oh, so let's take historical precedent again. What happened with the Solo when they said let's
a lot
wait?
of people waited, and I think they were sorry they waited.
Yes,
frankly.
So, and the market, by the time the Solo came out with all those cool features, the market had already caught up to that point. So it wasn't like they had any unique unfair advantage.
Right.
You know, so I would say the business decision, should I wait? I would say no, because if you want that competitive advantage, you're not going to wait. So
got it. All right, cool.
Anyway, I think
hope that helps, Mark.
Yeah, I hope so. Anyway, guys, if you have a question, go to AskDroneU.com. You know what happens when you ask questions. You get free stuff. So today we are actually on Facebook and we gave away an annual membership. Who was that winner, Rob?
Tiago Neves from Canada.
Tiago. I can remember a lot of Tiago's questions.
Yeah, he asked quite a few questions.
And he has deep questions.
Yeah,
too.
good stuff.
Definitely.
Good stuff.
So what does that mean? What does he get?
Well, like you just said, he's getting an annual membership to Drone U, which is going to give him access to essentially everything that we put out that our paid members get access to.
So our paid members get access to all of our classes?
They get access to all of our classes. They get access to recorded webinars, archived webinars. We do member-only webinars where members can come in and ask questions. He gets access to that. And, of course, we've got a lot of classes scheduled coming out over the next few weeks and months. So he's going to have access to that. So
how much money, like an annual membership, how much does that normally cost?
You know, it normally costs $47 a month, right? So whatever that adds up to, $600. Yep, just under $600. So that's essentially the value of what he just got.
So he's going to get $600 worth of free stuff over the next year.
Absolutely.
Probably more since we're coming out with so many new courses.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a pretty awesome deal.
Very, very awesome. And by the way, I think probably one of the reasons that he won is because he had asked a few questions that made it onto the podcast, and so he had more chances to win.
Smart. Are we going to do this again?
I think we should do this again.
Starting right now?
We're going to start it right now with actually episode 301. Okay, we're just making this up right now as we go. So
who cares?
But I think we should go 301 to 350. Let's not make people wait a full 100 episodes again.
Okay, so we're only going to go 50.
Yeah, and then maybe we'll do it again. But 301.
When he says maybe.
Well, yeah, we'll see what happens. 301 to 350. We're gonna draw.
351? Because that'd be 50, right? Oh, bean counter just got corrected. If you didn't hear it off air, our producer just said, "Shouldn't we go to 351? Because that would be 50."
Is that a beep slap? We're gonna go with 350. But thank you very much for the input.
How can you tell Rob's an owner?
Actually, 50 spots is 301 to 350 if we want to be technical.
Is 0 a value?
No, my word. Do you have a question? Go to AskDroneU.com and get us that question.
I love rabbit hole questions.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
As George W. Bush used to say, I just love philosophizing.
I miss W.
I do too. It was really easy to make fun of him.
Yeah.
You know, Barack is kind of harder. You know, you gotta, get really gray hair and slump the eyebrows and kind of talk like, oh, I've got excitement sometimes. Like I can't do his voice.
Well, and frankly, he just hasn't done a lot. And I guess people would argue this that there is to make fun of. Like he doesn't have that southern drawl or have wear cowboy boots on his ranch or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like I live in Hawaii.
He's actually pretty vanilla if you think about it.
Manila or vanilla?
I
better stop philosophizing. I'm sorry.
Please.
Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us today. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, leave us a review. We'd really love it. It. We'd love to see you on Instagram. Tag us at TheDroneU, and we will post your photos. I know you guys appreciate that, and we do too. Also, you can hate us on Twitter, twitter.com/TheDroneU, and check us out on Facebook. Become a follower. Why? Because you're going to get tips, tricks, news alerts, nuances, and things you may not learn other places, which gives you info, which means you're smarter. Anyway, here's to intelligence. That's going to do it for us today. My name is Paul.
I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Drone U.
We believe that videos, images, words, and sounds have the absolute power to inform, inspire, and entertain. We are united under the virtues of safety and knowledge. We are a training community of learners and teachers who encourage and energize each other to achieve greatness. We are pilots, videographers, photographers, freelancers, business owners, enthusiasts, experts, and apprentices. We are creators. We are the Drone Youth.